Dear Toastmasters and guests, a very good evening. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the 1271st. Yes, you heard it right. 1271st meeting of Bangalore Toastmasters Club. Before I proceed, I must remind you the ground rules of our meetings. I would request all of you to refrain from speaking about sensitive topics like politics, religion, and sex. And also, I would request all of you to mute your microphone when you are not speaking and switch on your video throughout the meeting. It encourages the speakers. Happiness is a choice. Wow, very nice to hear, right? Is it that so simple? If it was so simple, everyone in this world would have been happy all the time. Indeed, who wouldn't love to be happy, right? So I feel to be happy or one who wants to happy or choose to happy should have a strong willpower, right? Might be he would have gone through many difficult situations, like he might have failed in exam, or he might have failed, made some mistake, or he wouldn't have attained the success. In spite of all these things, if he wants to be happy, I feel one should be able to control his mind, and for that should be disciplined and do lot of hard work. The next person coming to the stage is a true epitome for this theme. Many years back, he was shy, introvert, and obsessed with judging by others. And now he has completely transformed to a new person with courage, confidence, and commitment. And he believes Toastmasters has played a major role in that transformation. He believes he loves to be happy always, and he ready to do that hard work. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our beloved happy president, Toastmaster Ayyappa Ponnachanda.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Shriji. My dear fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, a very good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome you all to this wonderful event here in Bangalore Toastmasters Club. With that note, I declare the meeting number 1271 open. May we have a secretary, Toastmaster Kamlesh, to present the minutes of the last meeting, please. Toastmaster Kamlesh.
Thank you, President. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present the minutes of the last meeting. Meeting has started with the theme, beneath anger, there is always a fear. And we had 75 members and guests together in the last session. And we had amazing prepared speeches and fabulous table topics. We had also evaluation session, and that was a takeaway from each of the session that we had. And on award ceremony that we had awardees, the best tag team player, Toastmaster Vishal, best role taker was Toastmaster Kirtana and Toastmaster Robinson D'Souza, and best table topic speaker was Toastmaster Sureka. Best evaluator of the evening was DTM Sumitra, and best speaker was Toastmaster Surjit. This time we had also made the video, recorded video available and for a public, so guests can also view the all the videos by just typing Bangalore Toastmaster meeting, so they can also see all the videos. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Kamlesh. Dear members, can you please advise if the minutes are in order? Okay, silence speaks. Looks like the minutes are in order. With that note, I declare the minutes of the last meeting passed. We have many wonderful guests in our meeting today. On behalf of Bangalore Toastmasters Club, I request let me ask a few of our guests to introduce themselves. Can we have Toastmaster Venu?
Hi, good evening, Ayappa.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
I'm president of BG Toastmaster Club. This is the second time attending your meeting. Last time attended your physical meeting. That's a long back, like couple of years back. Yeah, wonderful session, seeing a lot of people. Yeah, only I know only couple of familiar faces, and Prasad is also there. Yeah, thanks. Back to you, Ayappa.
Thank you so much, sir. Can we have Amit Paul? Amit, you there?
Hi,
Yes.
Ayappa, and hi everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yes. Go
Am
ahead.
I audible? Yeah, sorry,
Yes, you are.
I will
Yes.
not be able to switch on my video today, but
Perfect.
in future I will for sure. But very happy to join, and within the first 5 minutes I can realize that this is really a good group. So my name is Amit Paul. I'm basically from Bangalore. I work in Philips India Limited. So my plan for joining this group is to improve my communication as such.
Thank you. Thank you, Manish. Can we have Mazair, please? Mazair, you there? Okay, looks like he's not there. Okay, due to the paucity of time, we cannot talk to each and every guest. So on behalf of Bangalore Toastmasters Club, dear members, how can we welcome them? Let's unmute and give them a good round of applause. If any of you need any information with regards to our club, please get in touch with our Vice President Membership, Toastmaster Hannah Victoria. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. Be that ray of positivity that you wish to see. You may have had unfair things in your life, but don't get discouraged by going through. Have a goal, have a vision, have your own constitution for your life. As long as this is there and very strong, whatever the challenges you have in front of you, it is negligible in front of your goal. We will have the courage to accept all the adversities, all the difficulties, and you find a way to move on. This acceptance is nothing but your choice to be happy. But it is not an easy task. It requires a lot of guts, a lot of effort, a lot of challenges. Recently, during one of my talks, one gentleman stood up and asked me a question at the end of the session. Sir, you said happiness is a choice. Suppose if a death happened in a family, how can I choose to be happy? I had to pause for a while and reflect back to present my personal story. When I lost my mom, I thought that was the end of the world for me. The moment I heard that she was no more, I felt like the whole world is crashing on me. Funeral over, it was love and ritual. One of my relatives, I was sitting in a sofa. One of my relatives came to me and said, "Don't worry, food and shelter I can manage." It was like nightmare for me, that particular statement. And all the guests started leaving. And after that, I left. I felt as if I'm lonely. Kind of depression started, creeping into my life. Days over, weeks over, months over. One day, I wanted to be alone. I told to myself, unless I should come out of this situation, unless I accept that situation, my mom is not there, I can't do anything in my life. Because I have so much to achieve in my life. if I am happy in my life, if I do something great in my life, my mom would be very happy wherever she is. At this point of time, something dawned in my life. That is, never allow your emotions to control your life. It was a major breakthrough in my life. Now, I always make sure that my mind and my emotions are different. It gives me a great space to accept the situation and move forward in my life. It is very important in our life to learn the techniques to choose the happiness of a choice. The difficulties and adversities will be there. Presently, my dad's health condition is very bad. In spite of this, I chose to be happy, though I have a lot of responsibilities to take care of him. Because I always believe in miles to go before I sleep, miles to go before I sleep. To take the meeting further, we have a gentleman amongst us. He is very meticulous and very punctual in every meeting, especially in his Toastmaster journey. And whenever I ask any support from him, he's ready to be there. Please join me in welcoming the Toastmasters this evening. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Ayappa, we can hear you.
Ayappa, we can hear you.
Can you hear?
Hello.
Ayappa, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can. You're audible.
Hello. Please join me the Toastmasters this evening with a good round of applause.
Thank you so much. And Toastmaster Ayappa, you continue to inspire us with your stories week in, week out. We continue to get enthralled in your stories. And listening to a lot of your stories over the past weeks as president of the club, it leaves us many a time in a state of euphoria. Today's theme, fellow Toastmasters, guests, today's theme that we have for this lovely meeting is happiness is a choice and it requires hard work. Happiness is a choice and it requires hard work. To get the meeting started, and I just want to spread some positivity. And I want you all in the chat box or as a reaction, there's a small reaction item. For every one of you all that have something to be happy about this evening, it can be anything, work, family, something good that happened today, last week, something that you all can think about right now that brings you some happiness. Please put a yes in the chat or please put a smiley online, because I want to see everyone being positive about something going into such a spectacular meeting. Please, I'll give you all 5 seconds. Something that's got to be something that makes all of us happy. I for sure am going to do it as we speak. Something to give us joy. Come on, there are 66 of us and I've only seen one yes and one reaction. Okay, a few more reactions are coming in. Please type yes, type me, type anything you want in the chat. I can see more thumbs up. So all of us, or rather most of us, and the numbers are increasing, we have something right now to be happy about, be it absolutely anything, and the numbers are continuing to rise. Fellow Toastmasters guests, that is the theme for this evening. Putting everything aside, it's about positivity. It's about being happy. And as Ayappa rightly said, it's about choosing to be happy. We have a great meeting lined up this evening. And now I know a lot of us are entering this meeting in a positive mood, which is absolutely wonderful. So let's move on with it. First, let us understand, why we're here. Why are we here this evening? We are part of a Toastmasters journey which has started over 100 years ago. You see, what happened was there was a gentleman, a great gentleman by the name of Ralph C. Smedley, who used to work at the YMCA, which is the Young Men's Christian Association, back in Illinois in the United States. Now, Mr. Smedley decided to organize a club where people would go and learn skills in a social environment. He got a good response to the concept. He named the group Toastmaster. Now, Toastmaster back then, and still very commonly, refers to a person who gave a toast at a banquet or at a ceremony. And he named the club Toastmasters. Believe it or not, the first unofficial meeting of Toastmasters happened way back in March 24th, 1905, which is 116 years ago. So we are living 116 years of tradition and legacy. The first unofficial meeting was held in 1905. And later, once the YMCA developed, a building was constructed, he made a more formalized club, and he introduced the idea of Toastmasters to more people in and around the city. And in 1924, the first club was set up. 97 years ago, we had the first formal Toastmasters club and the first formal Toastmasters meeting. Since then, it's grown exponentially. Today, as part of the Toastmasters International Fraternity, we have 364,000 members. That is 3 3/4 of a lakh members worldwide. We have 16,200 clubs in over 145 countries. Since 1924, and when I say since 1924, I mean formally since 1924 and informally since way earlier than that. Toastmasters International has helped many people from diverse backgrounds become confident speakers, confident communicators, and leaders. Now, coming to the club, why are we all here? We're all here at Bangalore Toastmasters Club. But are we just one club in 16,200 clubs worldwide? No, we are not just any club. We are not one out of 16,200 clubs worldwide. Well, technically, yes, we are. But in a matter of spirit, no, we're not just one of thousands of other clubs. Let me tell you why. Bangalore Toastmasters Club is one of the largest clubs in the country. We currently have over 90 members. We are the second oldest club in India and was started back in 1997. Second oldest club in India. The club has molded many champion public speakers, many veteran public speakers, many of which are here this evening and which you will shortly hear from. And then you will understand why this club is what it is. Traditionally, the club meets on Friday evening at 6:30 every single week, physically at Ashirwad on St. Mark's Road, virtually on Zoom because of the situation and restrictions around us. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, being happy is a choice which requires work. That leads me to my next point, and what exactly are we going to do in this meeting and how we can come out of this meeting with a sense of happiness. I saw the topic that Srijit had proposed earlier in the week, and I tried to wrap my head around it as to what this topic may mean. Happiness is a choice and requires hard work. And I did some reading. I primarily found two schools of thought. One is where it isn't really a choice. It's more of a state of mind. You go out, you enjoy nature around the trees, the flowers, the sky, paintings. It's more about enjoying what's around you. Another where it is a sense of success, a sense of satisfaction that you achieve, a sense of accomplishment, which brings you happiness. A job well done brings you happiness. It's something that when your endorphins go high after a good workout, a good day at work, spending some good time with family or friends, that gives you a sense of happiness. Well, that is something which will come out of this meeting as well. And something where if we all perform our roles that we're supposed to, we will all be heading into a weekend, a lovely weekend ahead, right out of a spectacular Toastmasters meeting with a sense of happiness. A lot of us are here. A lot of us have roles to play. Some of us have questions to ask, speeches to give, and roles to perform. And I wish everyone the best and that we all perform it to the best of our duties so that we can come out of this meeting as happy people. Traditionally, there are three parts to the meeting. There is the first part, which is the prepared speeches, where members of the club, or even members of some other clubs in certain cases, deliver a prepared speech as per a particular module or a path that they are taking, and there are certain project guidelines that they need to stick to. This is part one. The second part, one of the most exciting or personal favorite, is the table topics, where members and guests rather, participants are called up on stage and are asked to speak impromptu, extempore, on a particular topic where there is no preparation time. The topic is given on the spot and you speak on the spot on a particular topic for up to 2 minutes. It's exciting, it helps us think on our feet, and it turns us into better listeners, organizers, and speakers. Finally, you have one of the most value-add sessions that Toastmasters can bring us, the evaluation session, where you have experienced Toastmasters evaluate speeches that have been given. And finally, you also have a general evaluator who overlooks everything. It is where all of us come, are given feedback, and reflect on the roles that we have played in the club and how we can improve for the next meeting and many other meetings in the future. Today, there is a slight twist in this evening's meeting. We have an education session which the club very proudly and very effectively hosts once every month or once every couple of months. And it is something that Bangalore Toastmasters Club takes great pride in. There's a lot of hard work behind the scenes in doing, in getting a veteran and experienced Toastmaster to come and give us some valuable insights to be better Toastmasters ourselves. So today we will start off with the prepared speeches, as we had mentioned. We will then have the evaluation session, and the third part to the session will be a very informative, interactive education session that we would have by our guest speaker. Well, now that we've laid out what's in front of us, let's start involving all of us in a positive way. First and foremost, I would like to introduce the General Evaluator. The General Evaluator, he is somebody who is an absolute veteran, a master in the field. He is somebody who is the past president of this club, and he has represented this club in international speech contests and in table topics. He is brilliant to watch and to learn from. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up. Toastmaster Vivek Vijayan is our Toastmaster. Please give him a big round of applause. I will introduce his role, but please give him a big round of applause. Toastmaster Vivek Vijayan will, as the G for this evening, will watch this meeting very closely. He will keep an eye on all of us and take notes how all of us are doing. And towards the end of the session, he will come up and present us with his report, and more importantly, with recommendations as to how each of us can improve playing our respective roles. Now, there will be certain important people in the meeting who will help him carry out his role. And without him, he may not be able to perform his role as effectively, and the evaluation session may crash. We are dependent on 4 individuals to play that very critical supporting role. It is something something is known as the tag team, the tag plus L team rather. The timer, the R counter, the grammarian, and the listener. Without further ado, let me call on Toastmaster Nagesh, who is the timer for this evening, to introduce his specific role. Please give it up for Toastmaster Nagesh.
Thank you, TMOD. As in today's meeting, in the role of timer, I will be noting down the time consumed by each of the speaker who takes the stage, and will give my report at the end of the meeting. During the speeches, for an icebreaker speech, which is 4 to 6 minutes, I will be showing the timer cards in the following order. Green for 5 minutes, at 5 minutes, green at 4 minutes, yellow at 4 minutes 30 seconds, and red at 5 minutes. For a prepared speech of 5 to 7 minutes, I will show the timer cards as follows. Green at 5 minutes, yellow at 6 minutes, and red at 7 minutes. For prepared speech evaluators, I will be showing the timer in the following order. Green at 2 minutes, yellow at 2 minutes 30 seconds, and red at 3 minutes. Back to you, TMOD.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Nagesh. That's very helpful. The next, if I could call upon the R counter, Toastmaster Rajana. Please give it up for Toastmaster Rajana, the R counter for this evening.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. So today my role, as an accounter. So today my role as an accounter is to take. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and dear guests. If you had just heard me while I was trying to explain my role, I was struggling to explain my role. I was trying to get words, and I was using pause fillers, crutch words while I was trying to explain my role. So this is kind of hindrance that will not let us grow as a public speaker. So I request all the speaker to speak efficiently, so without using any crutch or pause fillers. So today, as an accounter, I'll be taking note of all those crutch and pause words while the speakers give their try. So this is my role. Over to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Rajana. And for a moment, I thought my network connection is patchy again. Put me in a slight state of discomfort there. But thank you so much for explaining your role. Next up, we'll have the grammarian for this evening's meeting, Toastmaster Suma. Please give it up for Toastmaster Suma, this evening's grammarian.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible? Yeah. Last year, due to pandemic, what happened? My dear friend, she is one of my close friends, and her husband, both are visually impaired. So many years we were in contact to interact with each other to help anyway. But last year she called and told her difficulties. Suma, this is what is happening. We both of us lost our jobs due to COVID. So I immediately took action and spoke with my husband, whatever possible help we can do for her, sending groceries and some of the financial help, what I can do according to me. Good evening, Toastmasters and dear guests. I want to give a thought to you to think what value you can add in others' life. By that insight, I would like to take up the grammarian role today. And I would like to introduce the word of the day, euphoria, meaning is the experience or the effect of pleasure of excitement or excitement. After helping her, I was totally in the state of euphoria. And I would like to take a note of the usage of language and a catchy words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts, and also not good usage of English language. And I will submit the report at the end of the meeting. Over to Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Suma. And as important as grammar is adding value in one's life, and that was a very helpful lesson, which helps us not only for this meeting but ahead as well. Let me next call upon the listener for this evening's meeting to explain her role. Toastmaster Preeti. Please give it up for Toastmaster Preeti.
Good evening, Toastmasters and dear guests. As a listener, I will note interesting information from any of the speakers and ask questions to the end of the meeting to see if everyone was paying attention. In short, I am the monitor of the class today. Please pay attention.
Thank you, Toastmaster Preeti, for explaining your role so well. And I'm sure we'll all be very good listeners this evening and not get into any trouble with you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's give our support team, our role takers, the General Evaluator, the timer, our counter, Grammarian, and the listener a big round of applause. Please unmute yourselves and give them a big round of applause. With that, we'll jump right into it. The first part of our meeting is on the prepared speeches. First, let me call on stage for the first speech, the evaluator for the speech. This Toastmaster is somebody that I'm sure, apart from me, a lot of us look forward to and enjoy her speeches, whether prepared or table topics. She's one of the stalwarts of the club. When I asked her what does she like to do to give her a sense of calm or happiness, she likes to indulge in embroidery, which her mother taught her. And she also put in another line for me, and she said, a stitch at a time taken patiently, and just watch how beautifully the pattern comes out in the embroidery. So not only was it informative for the purpose of me introducing her, but I got a very lovely, informative analogy. And I think that just sums up this Toastmaster so well for all of us. The evaluator for the first speech, ladies and gentlemen, please put a very big round of applause for Toastmaster Sureka Jagdani. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Okay. Am I audible now, Aaron? Thank you so much for your appreciation. Yes. The purpose of this speech is to introduce yourself, Toastmaster Chetan, to the club and learn the basic structure of a public speech. Timer, please note that the duration of the speech is between 4 to 6 minutes. And Toastmaster Chetan, all the very best to you for your icebreaker speech. Over to Toastmaster Chetan.
Thank you so much, Sureka, ma'am.
Yes.
And the speaker that's coming on stage, well, it makes my job a little easier because I don't need to introduce him because that's his role to do. But just one small point is I had a chance to meet him before we went back into lockdown. And he was a very exciting person to meet. And I enjoyed conversing with him. So I wish him all the best. And I hand over the stage for the icebreaker speech. Toastmaster Chetan, please give a very big round of applause for Toastmaster Chetan for his icebreaker speech.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
So I still remember, sorry.
Before you commence, can you pin the timer, which is me? I will be showing the cards as my background.
Yes, done.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So I still remember the first day of my meeting at this club. It was a physical meeting 2 months back, and out of excitement, I had reached the venue 1 hour early. I stood there alone, having no idea what was to come. The first person I met was Ayappa, and let me tell you, he looked smart and dashing in his blazer, like he always does. I had no idea that he was the president of the club. I just assumed that everyone looked nice and dressed sharp and professionally just like him. I also saw Shreyas wearing a nice suit, and seeing both these good-looking gentlemen, I felt very underdressed. Ayappa came and introduced me and told me how the meeting would be conducted. This was the first time ever I was coming to a Toastmasters meeting as a guest, and Toastmaster Aaron was the table topics master. He picked me for a topic, and here I stood on the stage in front of 50 odd people whom I'd never met before, and spoke on a topic which I'd never heard before. So that was both challenging and fun. And at the end of the meeting, I realized that this was a perfect platform for me to improve my communication and confidence. I really love the vibe of the place and the people. Everyone was so sweet, so genuine, and so warm welcoming. I realized that this was a perfect platform for me, and I made a decision that Bangalore Toastmasters Club is the best place for me. And I'm here standing in front of all of you today. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and dear guests. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you today. I'm so excited to start my Toastmasters journey with my first icebreaker speech. Let me take you all through my story now. Michael Jordan once said that my parents are and were my heroes. There cannot be anyone else other than my parents. The same goes true for me as well. My parents are not just my heroes, they are my superheroes. They worked really hard. They made sure that I got the best of education and childhood. I was an average kid in class. I would score very basic of scores. But my parents never forced me to score better than others, nor they compared me to my friends. They always got me what I demanded, and they always pushed me to do something that I was really interested in doing. I truly feel blessed to have them as my parents. I come from a typical Gujarati business family. My family is from Nagpur, and we have been into a range of businesses from automobile spare parts to floor mill to paper factory to wood and timber. In the late 80s, my father shifted to Bangalore in search of business opportunities. And if you all remember, back in those days, people hardly even understood Hindi here. So it was very challenging for a father even to communicate the basic things to the locals here, or even to travel from one place to another. My father would go to the forest with his workers to get some wood and sell it to the merchants back in the city. He worked really hard initially and then moved the rest of the family from Nagpur to here. I was born and brought up in this beautiful city, and I'm a proud Bangalorean by heart. I got the best of education since my kindergarten, and after my schooling, I went to St. Joseph's Boys College for my pre-university. And after seeing only boys around me for 2 long years, I decided to shift to a co-ed college. And what better college than Jain University? I had absolute fun at Jain for the next 3 years. And those of you who know Jain University know what I'm talking about. That is also where I met Rajdeep sir. He was a faculty at my college, but he did not teach me. I still knew him because he was quite popular throughout the college. And I felt so happy and excited to see him at the club when I first came here. And what were the odds? I got assigned his mentee. And I feel so lucky to have him as my mentor here. So after my BCom, I took a year off to prepare for my CAT exam. And until then, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I figured, let me just get done with my MBA, and then let's see how it goes from there. So I scored very decent marks in my CAT and managed to get into Christ. And those 2 years at Christ were absolutely amazing. Every day was more exciting and fun than the previous day. I had chosen marketing as my major, and every other day we were supposed to come up on stage and present on a topic, sometimes prepared and sometimes impromptu, just like how we have here at Toastmasters. That is where I realized the importance of great communication skills, a skill that can make or break a person, a skill that is required in every field and industry, not just in marketing. That is where I knew that I need to improve on this one particular skill. In the second year of my college, something amazing happened to me. I was sitting in my class one day and I get a notification on my phone that I've been added to a stock market WhatsApp group by my uncle. I saw this as a serious mistake as I had absolutely no idea about stock markets. I go back home that evening, I call up my uncle and ask him why he added me. He tells me to be in the group for a few days, and if I do not like it or if I do not understand it, I was free to leave. So I did just that. For the next few days, I just monitored the group. I saw people were buying and selling shares and making really good money. That really got me interested. Even though I did not understand logic, I was hooked. And coincidentally, after a few days, we had a visiting faculty who taught us personal finance. And even he started with the stock market, how to invest in stocks and mutual funds. So I saw this as a sign from the universe that this is something that I should be doing. And the signs were right. My interest grew more and more, and I got more and more hooked. I was hungry for more knowledge, and I'd go to my professor's cabin after class and ask him to teach me everything that he knew. He was the sweetest of gentlemen I had ever known. He helped me a lot, and then things started to get clear. But this is something that I want to pursue after my college. So after my college, I joined my dad in the business and dedicated most of my time towards understanding the stock market. I worked really hard. I worked late nights, also worked on weekends and holidays. I did not take a day off for the next 2 years. Trading is a very challenging industry to get into. It is definitely not for everyone. It requires one to be calm, patient, disciplined, and very active. I think trading has truly transformed me into a better person. Had it not been for trading, I wouldn't have been this person today. Trading for the most part is a full-time desk job. You're in front of a monitor all the time. You hardly get to meet or interact with people. This is where I made a decision to get out of my comfort zone and get out more into the open. That is where the idea of joining Toastmasters came into my mind. That's what got me here. That's my story. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Chetan, on delivering your icebreaker. And as is customary with the club, could I request each and every member, each and every attendant on the call to please put your videos on, and let's stand where we are currently at and give Toastmaster Chetan a standing ovation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Chetan. And I think when I met you, I decided I want to be really good friends with you because of stock trading tips. It's something I do on the side and more as a hobby, but I also guess that's the problem. Because I do it on the side and just as a hobby, I'm not able to capitalize it as much monetarily, maybe as experts like you would. But fantastic speech, and thank you so much. Congratulations on delivering your icebreaker.
Thank you so much.
Chetan. Next up, our second speech of this evening, and I'll just take a pause here to see a lot of smiling, happy faces when you all put your videos on. So I'm glad to see that we're being positive and we're smiling and enjoying the session as it goes by. It's very pleasant to see. The next speech, or rather the next speech, this gentleman is somebody who told me that one of the biggest or the specific areas of public speaking where he had to put in the most effort to improve is his speech modulation. He said when he joined Toastmasters, he ended up using a flat pitch. So he's had to put most effort in his speech modulation, and Toastmasters has helped him grow immensely in that respect. I also asked him what he does in his off time, activities or hobbies that makes him happy, brings him calmness. And he said, it's a combination. Sometimes he likes to sketch and read. And well, that does seem to bring him, at least in most cases, I've seen him in most Toastmasters meetings, to be very calm and composed. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters and guests, please help me in welcoming the evaluator for the second speech, Toastmaster Nikhil Singhal.
Thank you, Toastmaster Aaron, for such a lovely introduction. Good evening, Toastmaster. The speaker is attempting her first speech from the pathway presentation and mastery. The purpose of this project for the member is to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback on the next speech. Good luck to Toastmaster Smita. And timer, please note that the timing is 5 to 7 minutes. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Nikhil. Again, you exuberate such calmness. I'm sure it's a lot of sketching and reading that has brought you here, but thank you so much. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, let me welcome the next speaker on stage. She is somebody that we can bank on. In her free time, she loves to take up gardening. And she says that if she is with plants, she will forget the rest of the world. And that, I thought, is a lovely sense of euphoria to be in. When you're in your gardening space and with your plants, you just forget everything around you and the world around you. Absolutely brilliant. She is currently doing her second speech in the presentation mastery. The title of her speech is The Best Way to Get Good Health. Please unmute yourselves. Help me in welcoming Toastmaster Sujata to deliver the speech, Best Way to Good Health. Toastmaster Sujata.
Thank you, Oren. Am I audible?
Also, Toastmaster Sujata, please pin up the timer if you haven't already.
Unable to do it actually. May I request all the Toastmasters and guests to turn on your videos. When I start counting 1 to 5, I request all of you to blink your eyes rapidly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you, one and all. If you don't get sleep in the night, rapidly blink your eyes 100 times. You will fall asleep within a minute or less. Rapid movement of the eyes makes it a tiresome activity to your eye muscles, and it helps you to fall asleep quicker. Good evening, Toastmasters and distinguished guests. In this world, all living beings, rest is inevitable. Do you know that humans are the only species among mammals who can willingly delay sleep? Yes, you heard it right. Only human beings can delay sleep. A good night's sleep is very much needed for active and happy life during the entire day, and it solves a lot of problems. Without proper sleep, our brains cannot work to the best of their abilities and will result in taking wrong decisions and tend to more mistakes. Many of us are aware that insomnia is a sleep disorder. People with insomnia find it difficult to fall asleep due to lack of sleep at nights. We feel during daytime sleepiness, headache, stress, laziness, being unwell physically and mentally, and many more. I feel the modern technology, the television and mobile gadgets and tech gadgets play havoc with our life. During my childhood, when I was living in our village, we didn't have power. We used to have kerosene lantern like this. My mother used to start cooking by 4:30 p.m. Before sunset, we all used to have food and go outside the house to sleep. While sleeping outside on jute rope cot, seeing the vast sky, we used to enjoy the cool breeze, counting the stars, and cherish the milky moon. We used to have a great time. The beauty of villages is everybody's house is everybody's. There are no restrictions to sleep or eat in others' houses. People will sit and chat wherever they find is platform or wherever it is cool. Normally, in villages, they get up at 5 a.m. They go to agriculture fields. Afternoons, they come home. They take nap wherever they find a comfortable place to lie down. One of our distant relative, Mr. Pratap, who always used to have a nap in front of our house. One day, he was in very deep sleep. Someone someone he came and woke him up because they had some work. Immediately, Pratap woke up like a villain. His eyes was red. He just slapped the person who woke him. That's it. After hearing a commotion, many people gathered and settled the issue. As a child, I could not understand why it had happened. I was thinking Pratap was young and strong. That is why he slapped. But I realized the truth only after my marriage, when my husband was in deep sleep. When I wake him, he used to, no, not slapping. He used to behave weirdly. My marriage has taught me that when a person is in deep sleep, we should not suddenly disturb their sleep. From my childhood, I have been a good sleeper. I put all my efforts not to fall asleep when I study, but all times I'm failing. Nevertheless, I can proudly say that I always have a quality sleep. You all may be thinking, how I can confidently say quality during my sleep at night. Even if there are heavy wind and rain, I would not come to know. Next day, I will get up as if nothing has happened in the world. We spend 1/3 of our life asleep. At each stage, it may be different. A small just born child requires 18 hours of sleep. An adult requires 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. If we are tired mentally and physically, body never expects any comfortability. There is a good saying in Telugu, Akali ruchi erugadu, nidra sukham erugadu, which means hunger never expects the taste and sleep never expect the comfortability like bed, cot. When the body is tired, just flat. That's it. Let me tell you another biggest drawback of sleeplessness. The poorer the quality of your sleep, the bigger will be the size of your pants. Yes, sleeplessness going to make you fat and fat. To drop fat, you need to kick your body's recovery process. And recovery happens at night when you have good quality sleep. I would like to share few tips to have a proper and quality sleep. Take shower before you go to sleep. Eat at least 3 hours in advance. Avoid alcohol or smoking. Drink a glass of warm milk. Say no to gadgets. And most importantly, keep all your favorite baggages. It may be a purse, jewelry, or any sort of favorites. Keep aside. Don't sleep keeping your head towards north because it has got a scientific explanation. Have a regular bedtime and wake up time. And get the TV out of bedroom or 1 hour, switch off 1 hour before. Dear friends, any insomniacs here, I do hope that these tips might help you in embracing sound sleep. I wish you all sweet dreams and a great health. Hello, don't sleep now. Keep my wishes till night. Now we have many more things lined up. Over to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. Please give a big round of applause to Toastmaster Sujata. Definitely, we won't be sleeping anytime soon.
Thank you.
But with your tips, it will help us sleep sooner and better at night. So thank you so much for that, Toastmaster Sujata. Next up, for the third and the final prepared speech in the first segment of this evening's lovely meeting, I would first like to introduce the evaluator for the third speech before the speaker comes on. This gentleman is another such stalwart of the club, and I had the absolute privilege of interacting with him for the first time one-on-one today. I unfortunately haven't done that before, and I was a little nervous, but he was just so calm and pleasing to talk to on the phone. We actually had a brief but a lovely conversation. He also told me that He takes 45 minutes out in a day for meditation, but for him, it's not hard work. It's more of a state of mind, but the meditation helps. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in give a very big hand, a very big round of applause to Toastmaster DTM Rajdeep Manwani, who will be the evaluator for the third speech. A big round of applause. And on his behalf, I would like to call upon Toastmaster Srijit to please read out the guidelines for the third speech. Over to you, Toastmasters.
Hello. Good evening, Toastmasters and guests. The purpose of this project, am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
yes.
Yeah, okay. The purpose of this project is for the member to identify his or her primary leadership style or styles and share some aspects of his or her primary leadership style or discuss leadership styles in general. Over to you, Toastmaster Aaron.
Thank you, Toastmaster Srijit. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters and guests, the third speaker, the third and final speaker for this evening, he is somebody who looks for happiness amidst nature itself. He feels he doesn't need to look too far. It's around him. And he has a constant quest to be happy and joyous all the time. So it's not too much of hard work or a quest for him. It's more of a state of mind and a state of feeling for him. He will be delivering his level 2 project 1. The title of his speech is 3 Ways to Lead People. Please help me in welcoming Toastmaster Abhirama on the stage. Toastmaster Abhirama, please pin up the timer.
Yes.
And the stage is yours, Toastmaster Abhirama.
Good evening, my dear leaders of the world. Way back in school, every year, students were asked to vote for their favorite boy or girl to become the school leader. I contested the elections because I knew I was quite popular in school for all the good reasons. However, the school was dominated by girls. In a class of 75, there were 50 girls and just 25 boys. As a result, no boy had ever become the school leader in the history of St. Joseph's Convent. On the day of results, all my friends were curious, not to find out the winner, but to know the margin of my defeat. And guess what? With a huge margin, I won the elections and became the school leader, the first boy ever. Now you know how popular I was among everyone. One of the responsibilities of the school leader was to ensure that the classrooms were always kept clean. So I planned it in such a way that students from 2 of the benches stay back on a given day and clean the classrooms for 10 minutes. This went on well for a few weeks, and then I started hearing complaints about the classrooms not being clean. And who was to blame? The school leader. I knew who those students were. I knew those students who did not turn up to clean the classrooms, and I was furious with them. I wanted to complain to the teachers. I came home and told this to my father. He said, "Son, don't get into conflicts. You are the leader and you should never complain. You should inspire others by setting the right example. Why don't you stay back every day and clean the classrooms with your friends? Do this for a few days. Everything will fall in place." And guess what? His advice worked like magic. Everybody became my good friends. They all started listening to what I said, and nobody missed their cleaning duties. Problem was solved without a single conflict. This incident perhaps subconsciously shaped my leadership style. Toastmasters International defines 8 leadership styles. 3 A's, a B, C, and a D went to file an IP. 3 A's stand for affiliative, authoritative, and altruistic. B, C, and D stand for bureaucratic, coaching, and democratic. IP stand for innovative and pace setting. The one that I closely associate with is affiliative leadership style. An affiliative leader is someone who emphasizes on personal relationships, teamwork, and harmony, and avoids conflicts. He is someone who tries to inspire people not just by preaching, but by setting an example for people to see. Does the affiliative leadership style work in every situation? Certainly not. Because every leadership style has its own merits and demerits and is relevant in one situation or the other. The best leaders are the ones who are agile. They adapt themselves to circumstances just like water that molds itself into any container. No matter which leadership style we follow, we need to be aware that leaders derive their credibility, respect, and power not from their words, but from their actions. In the battle of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna was disheartened by everything that was happening around him and was reluctant to fight, Krishna warned Arjuna, Yad yadacharati shreshtaha tat tat deva itaro janaha sa yat pramanam kurute lokaha tad anuvartate. Partha, you are looked upon by millions of people in the world. You are their leader. What you do today is going to influence thousands of generations to come. Being a leader, you have a tremendous responsibility, Arjuna. Do not give up. You have to do the right thing today and set an example for the world to follow. These words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is a lesson in leadership for all of us, because every individual inevitably plays a leadership role in one way or the other. Leadership does not have to mean acquiring power by virtue of position or title. Leadership is the ability to influence people. And all of us influence someone or the other in our lives, almost on a day-to-day basis. All of us are leaders in our own ways. As the responsible leaders of the world, we all have to be aware of the 3 ways to lead people. Lead by example. Lead by example, and lead by example. Over to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, fellow Toastmasters guests. Please give a big round of applause to Toastmaster Abhirama. Absolutely enthralling speech, informative and inspiring. And I'll just leave it there because the words are still sinking in and processing. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the first segment of this evening's meeting. I would request you all to please take this opportunity and vote for the best speaker of the session. I believe the links have been circulated on the internal group. The voting code is 1271. I'll repeat, 1271 is the voting code. Please, I encourage you all to please cast your votes in the next 10-15 seconds or so. It's been a lovely session of prepared speeches, and I can see a lot of us smiling on screen. It's been hard work that all the speakers have put in, but it brings all of us a sense of happiness. And with that, we'll conclude the first segment. And I'd like to hand over to the very able hands of our General Evaluator to take the next session forward. That is the evaluation session. So I'll hand over straight away to, again, a past president of the club, a very experienced veteran Toastmaster Vivek Vijayan. I'm so sorry. Toastmaster Vivek Vijayan, the General Evaluator for this evening. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's nice to be back. I was waiting for the pandemic to get over and for us to restart at Ashirwad in full course, but that didn't happen. So looks like I will have to settle for Zoom meetings or whatever that is for the rest of the year. That's okay. So yeah, this morning at around 8 o'clock, the Vice President Education, Srijit, sends me a message on WhatsApp and asks me, are you free? I want to talk to you. On a Friday morning, when the Vice President Education calls you, it must be for something related to the meeting. But you know, you shouldn't respond immediately that you're free. I told him that, yeah, you can call me at around 10 o'clock. Let me see. Let me see my calendar. I was actually free. Then around 10 o'clock, the hesitantly Srijit calls and asks, so are you planning to attend today's meeting? We have a cancellation for the General Evaluator. Do you want to really take it up? Actually, I was looking forward to take up some role. And but I told, yeah, maybe I'm not really interested in taking these roles. So, you know, happiness is a choice. For me, the happiness is a choice by acting important, feeling myself important, trying to kind of tell that I don't have time, and I can perhaps do a favor by telling him that, yeah, maybe I can manage somehow. All those were okay. The true happiness that never comes by playing around with people like that. True happiness comes by understanding, getting into his shoes and trying to help him, because he's doing it for our club. And it takes a lot to do for the past 11 months. So let's look at what really happens with the buildup of any meeting. Okay, the buildup of a meeting. The meeting does not start at 6:30 today. The meeting actually starts in the mind of the Vice President Education at least 3 weeks before. So sorry for this thing, for the noise. So I can't help. Anyway, the buildup of the meeting starts 3 weeks before, because you have to interspice. You can't have meetings one after the other which are similar in nature. So you will have to think as to how should you schedule a meeting, how should you do it, etc. So that's and to have a structure the meeting in such a way, it's not easy. So that's a brilliant job, considering that he has been doing it for the last 11 months. It takes a toll on you to do it. And then communicating the meeting is something which communicating about the meeting is something which is not very easy to do it in a tactical manner. I would say that this is something usually, if you can communicate about the meeting, at least a roadmap of what is coming for the rest for the next 4 weeks or so, that would be helpful. But it's difficult. I know, considering that there would be a lot of cancellations because of the kind of things that are going around, it's not very easy. So the roadmap would be really helpful, but I like the way that it gets every Thursday. You get a communication from Priyanka Ranore, the VPPR. Thursday morning you will get it. So when you develop a habit like that, then it becomes very, very helpful. So yeah, very good job, but not just Srijit, but the entire committee itself. More or less, the committee is the same for the last 11 months, and 11 months I'm going through online, which is slightly dry, I would say, when compared to the kind of meetings that we have at Ashirwad. So it's difficult, but you've been really doing it well. So yeah, having said that, let's go to the first evaluation. The first evaluation was the icebreaker speech of Chetan by Toastmasters Surekha Jagbale.
Yes. Thank you, General Evaluator Vijayan. Thank you so much. So what a smashing super duper icebreaker speech that was, Toastmaster Chetan. Good evening,
Thank you so
General
much, ma'am.
Evaluator, beautiful friends, and Toastmaster Chetan in particular. Chetan, you spoke about you, and you did that wonderfully well too. This was your icebreaker speech, and you had to break that ice. But you just didn't stop at that. You not only broke that ice, but through the warm sunshine of your words, you melted it and served us some lip-smacking lemonade on this warm and sultry day in the midst of May. So what kind of fizz and flavors was your icebreaker speech packed with? At the onset, you expressed deep satisfaction upon President Ayappa's demeanor, his dignified attire, and his heartwarming hospitality. And then you too came across as being very positive and enterprising when you just mentioned that you felt the tackling of your very first table topic as a fun experience. Now, that's great learning for all of us. If we embrace the challenge, the more we do that, the less we fear it, and the better we get skilled at dealing with it. Very well done on that. You expressed profound reverence towards your parents through an important quote by Michael Jordan. And then afterwards, your speech had a chronological sequence as to how your life unfolded. You had interesting anecdotes that were peppered with humor that helped you nail it so very well. You expressed euphoria at your good fortune upon having DTM Rajdeep as your mentor, and he had been your faculty at Jain College too. Now that was a delightful coincidence you would never have wanted to forfeit. Did your tone and personality match? It most certainly did. Yes, and because you were finding your voice and staying true to it helped you remain calm and centered. You had no hesitation and no notes at all. Were your hand gestures free-flowing and relaxed? Indeed, they were, which expressed your composure and your self-assurance as well. Do keep engaging in this fine craft in your forthcoming speeches as well. Did you speak audibly and clearly? Of course you did. If I have to make one suggestion for your improvement, which would not only enhance the quality of your speech, but help you earn many more compliments. And all of us love compliments, don't we? Then I would like to tell you, Chetan, that the pause is the most potent and underutilized weapon in the speaker's armory. And had you used it a lot more liberally, you would have helped the audience receive what you said a lot more fully. Cheers to you, because you rocked your talk all the way through to the closing. So keep doing your best and aim to be the best that you can ever be. And remember, your best is yet to come. Thank you for that spectacular speech. Over to General Evaluator.
Thank you, Toastmaster Surekha Jagbale, ma'am. Surekha, ma'am, always has this very nice, encouraging way of doing evaluations, which is really good. And Chetan, I mean, I was delighted to listen to your speech. Thank you so much. I wish that the next speeches that you would deliver would be more on making some money out of stock, or some investment and things like that, true to a Gujarati, and don't follow the rest of the breed in Toastmasters and speaking about happiness and kindness and all those can wait. Okay, just my suggestion. All right, Chetan. So let's go to the next one. That's the next. So the Sergeant at Arms. Okay, so I'm interspacing between. I'm not going to evaluate one evaluation after the next. Sergeant at Arms. So there is actually the work of Sergeant at Arms is very, very easy in an online medium. If you were to do it at Ashirwad, the person has to reach there at 5:30, etc. So that's nothing is needed. You can sit at home and fire up the Zoom. Zoom. You have to just fire up the Zoom meeting at around 6:10 or 6:15, and that should be all right. And that's the infrastructure was set well on time. I logged in at around 6:15, and it was fine. So, but so then then one particular aspect, I'm so sorry about this, I can't help it. So there is one aspect that is T minus 10. So if T is 6:30, what happens in the last 10 minutes? So last 10 minutes is when people start pouring in. So if you see at 6:15, there were just 9 of us, but by 6:20, you had around 25 of us, and that grows steadily. So during that 10 minutes of the meeting, we cannot, I don't think you should have interactions with the participants saying that you will have to pin the timer. All those are interactions, are distractions, because you have a lot of guests coming in. So like a typical meeting, what really should happen is that during that 10 minutes before the meeting, you should have continuous introduction. Though the meeting will start in 9 minutes, the meeting will start in 8 minutes, and these are the people who will be there in the meeting. Keep on giving, just you must be, the sergeant at arms must be speaking, and just like a building up some kind of and play some music in between, again make an introduction and play space of that. No conversations between the role takers. It's quite boring, and it might appear as if you're not the whole the setup is not well prepared. You can do all those preparations before, or using chat, etc. That's much better. So the 10 minutes build up build up some kind of a euphoria, so to say. And yeah, the introduction that you made for, it's very difficult to introduce Ayyappa, because it's been 50, I mean, almost 48 weeks of introducing the same person. Maybe we can reduce a bit of adjectives in introducing a person, and introduce some aspect, some maybe completely unknown aspect of him, so that it's people remember. So that's with the sergeant at arms. I know, I mean, Srijit, you're doing it as a replacement for the other for the real sergeant at arms. But anyway, this is what I have to tell. And okay, the next, let's go to the evaluation by Nikhil Singhal, the speech delivered by Sujata, Toastmaster Sujata Sanam. Evaluation by Toastmasters Nikhil Singhal.
Thank you, General Evaluator. First of all, congratulations, Toastmaster Sujata, for completing your first speech from the new pathway presentation in mastery. That's how it happened in life. When we finish one journey, we don't stop there. We keep moving from one journey to another, from one pathway to another, so that we can learn more and grow more and become a better person every day. Madam Sujata, I think I've heard you many times in the club, and I think mostly for all the role. I think all kind of role I've heard you. And I'm so impressed and moved by the story, your story, and the growth which you have achieved by being a part of the Toastmaster Club. And I'm sure that you must have also received a lot of feedback and evaluation during your entire journey with the club. However, still today, as your evaluator, I'm so glad to be evaluator today. I'll try to point out few things which might can add more star to your success story. If you look at, from a broad perspective, two things which is very important for any speech. One is what went well. If we talk about what went well, the one thing is hand movement. You had a perfect hand movement. A hand movement is helpful to make you feel connected with the audience. Audience can feel part of the speech. That's too great. Second, expressions. You had the expressions. That was also a good point, because that feel audience again hooked to your speech. Third is the usage of word. I noticed that you were using a word which was not a generic word, like the one is havoc. We always try to use one or another word through which we can increase our vocabulary and can give something to the audience. Fourth, the speech format. I like the format of your speech. You started with the sleep importance, then went back to the village, explain us what used to happen days back, then coming back to your own house and how your husband started feeling when you try to wake him up from the sleep, and then again back to takeaways to the audience. What takeaways the audience has, what they can take away at home from the importance of sleep. That's really a good pointers to always have in a speech. Now the second point is what didn't go well, where we can improve. The thing is paragraph structure. I feel, and I think I notice it most of the time. Sometimes if you can put a little stress on your paragraph, it might be better. For example, if I'm allowed to quote, every house is everyone house is everyone house is not a good paragraph to use. In spite of that, we should have been using everyone is so familiar and so welcoming that we can just go to anyone's house. Second one was looking at the milky moon. Milky doesn't go with the moon. We could have just say looking at the shiny moon and the bright moon, or maybe looking at the Milky Way. Though the entire your speech was too great, but if you can put little stress on your paragraphs, it will just become a superstar. Second point which I noticed was the expressions. We always say that whatever is our strength, we always have a weakness there. Expressions is your strength. But at the same time, when you're talking about something which is negative, which is not going in a right direction, we should try to reduce our emotion. We cannot be happy at that time. We either have to be shocked or maybe have some other, flat expressions. Like when you were narrating about the demerits of the sleep, disadvantage of the sleep, we cannot be happy at that time. Otherwise, the audience cannot segregate and can find out, okay, what is good and what is bad. The third and the last one is, though you had the pointers in your story and takeaways, but it's always better to give pointers and takeaway in the point. For example, number 1, enough sleep will never make you fat. Number 2, sleeping will make you healthy. So you always try to put the pointers, because then only the pointers can make a difference. That's it from my side, Mr. Sujata. Otherwise, it was a wonderful speech, and I love listening to you. Looking forward for more speech from you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Toastmaster Nikhil Singhal. That was a good evaluation of the speech by Sujata. Sujata, always I like the selection of the topic selection that you have for all the speeches. And Sujata is somebody who has a consistency in her speech. There is, in spite of her, she's extremely busy at her workplace, and yet she is always a consistency that she adopts, and she reaches her milestones much before what others do of her. If you look at the amount of work that she has at home and at her office. Thanks so much, Toastmaster Sujata Sanam. Let's now talk about the president. So when Ayyappa took over as the president, it was like, maybe there are a few more months of online, and then we get to the regular offline or the meetings, physical meetings. But so I would have been, somebody like me would have been immensely disappointed, and would not have the kind of energy that he expresses. But if you look at it, I mean, it's true leadership for somebody like him to even at the there's one, it's around 6 more weeks to the term. That's it, and still he's on it. He's always on it, trying to come up with innovative things for every meeting. It's not very easy to come up with that. So thanks, Ayyappa, for your leadership during the times which are really tough. And sometimes I was really surprised to see that there are new people joining the club at this when it is completely online. But that would not have happened but for you and your committee. Otherwise, people would not have the confidence to really join. Somebody like Chetan to join and make a impact with this icebreaker speech would not have happened without this happening. So really good, Ayyappa. And the variety is the spice of life. Why I say this is that if you look at, again, can it be a slightly better? Can the introduction that we make be slightly better? Is what I was just thinking when you introduced Aaron Kamath, because you're introducing the Sutradhar or the MC of the meeting. So maybe build up some sort of a some sort of a euphoria, some sort of a larger than life image. But again, that requires you to do some more homework. You can't just start off. You will have to speak to him at least 2 days in advance, think about how to introduce and all those. So yeah, that's difficult. But apart from that, thanks for everything. Thanks for leading this club. But that's nothing to do with this meeting per se. But overall, I had to make a point because this is the right time to make a point. Thanks so much, President Ayyappa. And let's now go and have the evaluation of Abhiram by none other than, so it's like a champion evaluating a champion. Evaluation by DTM Rajdeep Manwani.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vivek, for telling me that. And fellow Toastmasters, General Evaluator, and Abhirama in particular, there's a famous saying which goes, a leader is one who knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way. And you emphasize the very fact that until he goes the way, a leader is never a leader. Thank you for telling us that important message today. Now, Abhinama, what did you do extremely well today in your speech? One, your storytelling. You are an amazing storyteller right from the beginning, from when you talked about your school and being elected as the school leader, to your father telling you how to get the work done from your classmates, and then also talking about the story of Krishna and Arjuna. I think so you had that very, very great a sense of a story which was running through your speech, which had characters, which had conflict, which had every essence of a good story, and 3 good stories packed into one. Brilliant. Second thing I thought was the humor which you added on a topic which is a leadership style, getting that humor, that how you are so popular among whatever, both boys and girls. It might send different messages, but you took it out so beautifully, right? And you talked about how you got the work done, and there were light moments throughout your speech which made your speech extremely good. The third and the most important thing which I thought was the messaging. I think so, talking about your leadership style, when you bring about a message that you have to lead by example, that brings out the very, very essence of a good champion speaker. And you brought that out brilliantly, that you said that you have to lead by example until then, and that you combined with your memory technique. You know, you said 3 A's, B, C, D, IP. You put me as a teacher to shame, you know, as how you have to teach the leadership styles to them. So you had the memory and the messaging. That was brilliant. Now, what, Abhirama, do you have to do to improve yourself? 2 small suggestions. Even Taj Mahal has a small crack, so
Green.
Have to see that. So what was the first thing which I think you should improve is create a little bit of curiosity and intrigue. Straight away you said, I'm an affiliative leader. Might be could have told the story and said, I was asked to do this and I did this, when you told about the story about your father, and then tell, what do you think I belong to? Get the audience to, do you think I'm an affiliative leader? Do you think I'm an assertive leader? Do you think I'm a bureaucratic leader? And then bring out the cat out from the bag rather than stating
Yellow.
and yes, and then telling the story. Am I audible?
I said yellow card, sir.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, so you can bring about the curiosity in the entire speech. The second thing which I thought you could have done is, you know, a good public speaker is a blend of spontaneity and rigidity. Now, I thought you had rehearsed extremely well, brilliant rehearsal, and you speak like an international speech contest every time. But just bring a little bit of spontaneity into that particular speech, and that will make it look less rehearsed and more conversational. So to bring that conversation, it shouldn't look that you're preaching to us, you know, it should look like they're conversing to us. But even then, a brilliant job done. Just keep these 2 points in mind. And I have to end with these 3 lines for you. Abhinama, today you gave us a riveting speech on how to lead by example. And that is the best way to lead. Just a little bit of spontaneity and curiosity would have made your speech move to another creed. But if Bangalore Toastmasters is a farm, you are one of its best seed. Thank you so much, Abhinam.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Rajdeep Manwani. That was you will usually have nothing more to add when Rajdeep evaluates somebody's speech. And Abhirama, this is the first time I'm listening to you. Yeah, it was a people have so a couple of people had mentioned about Rani Ki Vav, the speech which you made. They all felt it was very impactful. Of course, I mean this was also very impactful, and many people get this project wrong. I think you got it mostly right. This leadership project. Thanks so much, Abhirama. Let's have the timer. Can you please give your report? Timer, it's over to you.
Can I share my screen if possible?
You can. I can. Yeah, you can share. Yeah. Then I'll have to take back. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Don't have the rights to do so. Yes, I'm getting it now. Thank you. Well, I was to get this lectern to share my timer report at 7:43. We are at 8 o'clock now. Well, if I take only the speakers and the evaluators, it's mostly red for all the speakers, but if I take those 30 seconds grace period, they're all within that. Even for the evaluators, they fall within the grace period. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you. Thank you, Nagesh. And then let us go to the accounter. Yeah, accounter report. Yeah, Rajanna.
Thank you, Toastmaster Vivek. So here is my report. Among speakers, Chetan, there are no tally marks here. So Sujata ma'am, she used heart four times. Abhirama, there are no tally marks. So coming to evaluation, Sureka ma'am used R thrice. Nikhil used R 4 times. Rajdeep sir, he used once R. This is my report. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Rajanna. We should go to the Toastmaster Suma, Grammarian's report.
Yeah, good evening, Toastmasters, once again. Some of the good usage of the language and the quotations which I have in my bag. Parents are my hero. Blink eyes rapidly. Cherish the milky moon. Counting the stars. Glorious. Don't get into conflicts. Affiliator. Innovative. That molds into any container. Riveting speech. Shows the way, leads the way. If I would like to give small suggestion to Sujata ma'am, just to improve on pronunciation, unwell should be unwell. Yeah, over to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Toastmaster Suma. I don't think you have to touch upon pronunciations. We are fine as we pronounce is what everybody in the world thinks. If you look at it, I might have a strong I might have a strong mother tongue influence, but that's perfectly fine. All right. So let's go to the listener, Toastmaster Preeti.
Thank you, Toastmaster Vivek. Are you able to? Okay, yeah. Thank you, Toastmaster Vivek. Good evening, Toastmasters and dear guests. Let me see how you fared today in your listening skill. What are the 3 characteristics of a good stock trader? Am I the only listener here? Yeah, hope I'm audible. No. I repeat my question.
Yes. Officially, you are the listener.
I'm the only listener. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Calm is one of them. Calm, be calm, have patience.
Patience and discipline. Patience and discipline.
Very nice. Full points to you. It's being calm, patient, and disciplined. Who said this? Who helped us understand the characteristics of a good trader?
I am Shuraj here.
Yeah, thanks, Shivraj. It's Chetan who helped us understand the three good characteristics of a trader. Okay. Sleeplessness can make you obese.
Sujata.
Sujata.
Sujata ma'am, yeah. Those who are still wondering why you are obese, think over it. If BTMC or Bangalore Toastmasters Club is a farm, you are the best seed.
Dr. Rajdeep.
Rajdeep sir, right.
Rajdeep sir told Toastmaster Abhiram.
Right, you're right. We have an affiliative leader amongst us. Who is that?
Toastmaster Abhiram.
Abhiram.
The Toastmaster.
Abhiram.
Right. Rapid movement of the eyes will help you fall asleep.
Sujata ma'am.
Sujata.
I'm good to know. I'm good to hear that you were listening and not falling asleep. Okay. Pause is the most potent and underutilized weapon.
Sureka.
Sureka, ma'am. Who advised Toastmaster Chetan to give more speeches on stock and trading?
General Evaluator Toastmaster Vivek Vijayan.
You're right. I think that's all for today. I understand all of you are good listeners. I'm proud of my club here and the guests.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Preeti. So let's talk about the Sutradhar of the whole meeting. The meeting actually walks with the foot of the Toastmaster of the day. And the Toastmaster of the day has a tough job of kicking off the meeting in the right manner. I think he put the ignition in very, very well by asking us to do an activity if we are happy or grateful to something, type yes. I mean that really, I mean, so till then you were like relaxed. That makes you type something, and that brings you gathers the attention. That's really good. And the clarity of the introductions is something which I really liked, Toastmaster Aaron. Clarity of the introductions to people, and the clarity of introductions about Toastmasters itself, and the different sections, etc. I think if I were a first-time guest, I would get it completely right. There cannot be a better clear way to explain that. But at the same time, I have a word or two about the appropriateness of the introductions. So in any meeting, the speakers, I mean the prepared speakers, prepared speech speakers are the stars. Okay, so I felt that the introductions given to the evaluators were a lot more elaborate than that for these speakers. Evaluators need not have an elaborate introduction, maybe one line at max, whereas the proportion of the evaluation of introduction to an evaluator to that of a prepared speaker should be at least 1:5. It can't be the other way around, or it can't be 1:1. It has to be 1:5 ratio. Even if it is 0:5, that is also fine, because they are the stars. They have spent a lot of time. They need an appropriate introduction. So that's something which you should do about. And to introduce the theme of the day, it's always better if you search for some stories versus facts about, so that it remains in our brain. The right side of the brain always receives stories well, but otherwise, if you just pay attention to the left to the facts, then we just forget it even before the meeting ends. So, but overall, I mean, you had the right way of trying to weave through the different sections of the meetings. That's really a very very good job done. And thanks so much, Aaron, for taking this role for this meeting. It's very difficult to get this role in our club, which you might get only maximum twice a year. All right. So before I end my meeting, then end my evaluation, let me have my 5 cents or whatever that is. So if you look at agenda, the agenda comes on Thursday, whereas the minutes comes on Friday. So by the time it's Thursday or Wednesday evening, you're looking forward to the Friday meeting. You really don't have any interest towards what has happened in the previous meeting. But whereas for somebody who has not attended the meeting on Friday evening or on Saturday, they're thinking about what happened yesterday or Sunday, the maximum the interest that stays is up to Sunday evening. For the minutes. So it would be helpful if the minutes comes on by Sunday or Monday max. It can't be a mid-air crash. So one person sends in the agenda, the other person immediately sends in the minutes. Yeah, it's a clash. You can't deflect the attention into two parts. When you are focusing on the next meeting, focus only on that. And then as a follow-up for this meeting, send the minutes. So that would be helpful if you can do that. And then you can't replicate many things that are done online offline onto the online medium. I'm not sure if it is very practical for all of us to stand up and applaud, but I do not have an alternative either. You'll have to find an alternative. Doing everything that we do online, it really is difficult. You cannot have an applause on this. It's difficult. So we'll have to find alternatives because the whole idea of this online meeting, etc., is to help us be more productive and be masters in presentations at work. It's at work, I do not stand up and present. I do not stand up and applaud or anything of that sort. But yet the presentations or talk that we have at work has to be effective. So I think we shouldn't try to replicate everything that is there. Online medium is different and the offline medium is different. Having said that, yeah, again, let me repeat, I mean, amazing work for the past several months of this online meeting. Hope this continues. Thanks so much. Back to you, Toastmaster Aaron.
Thank you so much. And with that, please everyone unmute yourselves and give all the role takers, speakers, and evaluators a big round of applause. It's been a lovely couple of sessions. And with that, I'd also like you to please cast your votes. The links for both role takers and evaluators have been shared on the group. The voting code is the same, 1271. 1271 is the voting code. Please take 15 to 20 seconds. Please cast your votes for both evaluators and role takers. Everyone's done a lovely job today. And with that, personal some appreciation for Srijit Ayappa and the committee for giving me the opportunity to do this. It's been a great learning curve. I did have a bit of hesitancy to take up the role, but it's been a very enriching experience for me. So thank you everyone for your support. Thank you, General Evaluator, for the feedback, really appreciated. And with that, I'll hand over back to our President Toastmaster Ayappa for the final session, to lead the final session of this evening's meeting. Stay safe, stay happy, everyone. Back to Toastmaster Ayappa.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Aaron. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Toastmaster Aaron a good round of applause for the wonderful work he has done. Finally, the time has come for which we all have been waiting for. Yes, we'll have a fantastic educational session from one of the great artists from Bangalore. She has a master's degree from UTS University of Technology, Sydney, Australia. Later, she came back to India and started her career as a lecturer in Mount Carmel College, Bangalore. She is a folk expert, theatre artist, and a social activist. She strongly believes that folk is contemporary and it unites and binds the people together, immaterial of their cultural barriers and differences. She always would like to work at the grassroots level, and that's why she moved her base from Bangalore to her hometown, Gulbarga. I had the privilege of attending her sessions many times here in Bangalore, and now it's our honor and privilege to witness her talk here in our club. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the speaker of this evening, Shilpa Mudbi Kotakota. Shilpa, virtual podium is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ayappa, for inviting me and providing me a space for sharing my experience and my work. Definitely, I'm not a public speaker. After watching some of your speeches, the number of words that I've already rolled out, I'm sure that's disqualified me. But on a lighter note, today's session, I had two minds about what I should do today. I did have a discussion with Ayappa, and we decided we will speak about why folk is meant to be contemporary. And then I saw the poster and I thought maybe it should be an educational session that helps you guys in some way. So I'm going to try and add a little bit about folk voice. So the things to largely encompass what I'm going to talk about today is what is folk and what is our treatment of it. How do we understand it? How do we research it? And as an artist, what is my art practice and how does it engage and mitigate in this strange realm of folk? But before that, I will say a little more about myself, not to be narcissist, but just saying a little bit. I have different practices that I've been a part of. Apart from me being a lecturer, that was a very small stint. I enjoyed my time teaching in Mounts. But the other things that I've done, what I studied to do, I studied to be a filmmaker. And I did many films with Karnataka State Department on women's empowerment. And we worked on rural development, farmers, agricultural crisis. These are the kind of themes that I picked when I came back and I started making movies. And slowly when I moved to Bangalore, trying to make films in Bangalore, it became more on the activism side of things as to how we have to fight on a policy level for these things to change. So I did a few of those films and slowly moved to theater, which is something that I did in college, and I returned back to theater, so to speak, and worked on an administrative level and also as an actor and a vocalist on stage. So I have few plays under my wing, not too many. I know a lot of my friends who are good actors have acted in many plays, but I'm not a full-time actor and not a full-time vocalist. What I did with all these skills that I have collected over the time is started a company called it's not a company, it's a collective called Urban Folk Project. Urban Folk Project is a collective of people who come together in their interest, who want to research folk arts, who want to understand the folk arts around them better. We try and give them enough information, also being a Janapada Academy member, which is a government body by the State Department of Karnataka. This Karnataka government has different academies, and there is one related to just folk. So I'm an official member of this academy. And knowing the inside and the outside and how officially things work and how unofficially things work, I thought I will talk to you all a little bit about folk. So what is folk? Folk, as the word suggests, means people. But what we are talking about is more to do with the culture of the people. So people and their culture is what can be defined as folk culture. Now, there are other characteristics. So let's look into the different characteristics of what makes something folk, because it's not as easily defined as a classical art form. Say, for example, Kathakali or Bharatanatyam or Carnatic music. These are forms which have very clear rules and aesthetics, quite often written down, but in folk it's not. It is passed down generationally. It's passed on from within the community. It's also passed down orally. It's not commonly written down. So folk is something that is passed down. Yeah. So let's go a little more deeper. Folk is also something that we collectively agree upon. Your folk is different from my folk because my folk are different from your folk. I mean, you know what I'm saying? My people are different from your people. And hence, my people or this collective agreeing upon. Who is this collective? That's the question that comes about when you say it's collectively agreed upon. So when you say there is a collective of people, It can be anything between a family, nuclear or joint, 3 or 20. You can have a group of people who are in a certain area, geographical area, people of Mudubi, the village that my dad comes from, people of Mudubi. And then you can have people of a certain class. In Bangalore, you have certain clubs that are people who have money and who have ancestral money, who have club passes can go to. So that, that is another group. These are not strict definitions, mind you. This is an art practitioner who has gone through a certain amount of research and giving you just ideas as to what this realm is about. And quite often, how things don't always have to stick into definitions. It can be within the feeling and the connection with which you go at it. So folk is that realm. It's that magical realm for me, and I'm trying to explain it. So where were we? We're looking at something that's collectively agreed upon. And when you say collective, you're looking at collective of people from where? Doing what? It might be a group of people working in the farms who are singing a certain song or singing work songs. So there is a different collective. So collectively agreed upon material is folk. Let's move further in and look at folk is not classical. I think most of you all here at this talk would agree with me. I think I should silence my phone. That folk is not classical. Folk is tradition, like how your mother used to arrange Dasra Bombays, those little dolls that certain communities have. They set up stairs in their house, like tiny steps, and they put dolls on there. Now there is a certain collection. Now that is ancestral property in some sense. There is a method of doing it. So that is a folk way. Now that folk way necessarily is not classical. Classical forms are what started off as folk forms and transcended into a space where they became classical. So when Sadir is the folk form, Devadasi or Dasi Ata it's called, and over time, because it was popularized, it was liked by many people, it was institutionalized, over time it became a classical form. So folk is not classical. Folk is a space where there are art forms, but they have not made that jump to becoming either classical or extremely globally recognized. When I say folk forms are not classical, I don't really mean folk forms are not popular. I made this mistake early on when I was researching, when I would say things like, these are endangered forms. These are endangered only to our city eye, people like you and me who live in Bangalore, who grow up in different conditions where you don't really have a view of the world, of the rural view, the rural world beyond the urban. So quite often we seem to think they're endangered because we don't see them, but they are popular. Like Yalamanata, the folk form that I am researching for the last 4 years, is a story, and it's a form which is basically quite old, but at the same time, when you're looking at the treatment of it, it's not necessarily a classical form. It has not become as popular as Yakshagana, right? And when folk becomes mainstream, when folk becomes popular, it doesn't necessarily become mainstream. So in this entire region, Yalamanata is popular. You will have a Yalamanata during Dasra, or if you had a group pravesham, or you had any auspicious occasion in your house and your relatives came over, overnight, to keep them engaged, you will give them a play so that they watch the play, they feel wonderful about the deities they have watched, the stories they have watched, and they give back that good faith and luck back to the family who's invited them. So quite often these overnight plays don't necessarily mean this is an entire process to make someone feel favor about this god, but it has a practical use as to why it is being done at that point. So we've spoken about what folk is. Folk is so many things, right? And it's not easily defined also because it's constantly moving. things within the folk realm, like say for example, the halagi or the tamte. It's a large metal framed leather drum, and you beat it. It is used by communities that are either treating leather or the ones who are manual scavenging. So the Holiyas and the Madigas in Karnataka play this instrument. And when do they play it? When someone is born and when someone's dead. So it's a birth and a death instrument, an instrument that invokes celebration or invokes that lament. Now it is changing. We use halagi as a protest instrument. When we stand out on the streets and we want to make noise, we want to make the system hear what is wrong, exercise our democratic rights, we use loud instruments. And today, halagi or tamte across South India, the pare as we call it in Tamil Nadu, it's an important instrument to resound your voice, the collective voice. So quite often the meanings, because there is not one custodian, you find that things evolve within folk. It gives itself to the need of the hour, the need of the time. So what then is a folk art form? A folk art form is anything which, it might be visual arts, or it might be design, it might be performance arts, which means dance, music, myth, magic, ritual. Not really using the word magic in a way that many people will understand here, but or I don't know how many of y'all will be able to connect, but let's just say ritual. A ritual for me, when I started going into this space of understanding folk and researching folk ways and folk aspects of a certain community, you look at ritual as a very important aspect. Ritual is what brings people together. It's an incantation, or it's a reaction, or it's a prayer, and there is a person who is behaving as a medium, and there are props, there are lamps, so all of these things are aesthetically placed in such a way to appease a greater divine force, to appease the souls of the people that are lost, to appease people who are living and need to feel closure from a certain event or celebrate a certain event. So quite often, or most rituals are theatrical to me. It's a piece of theater. It's a very strong piece of theater. And the person who is doing the ritual walks this very fine line of a world that exists and a world that needs to exist, or people wish that it exists. So there is the real and the unreal, and the person who gets possessed is basically the person walking that really fine line. You don't really know where that actor exists, if they exist in that mythical, magical world, or do they actually exist in reality. So to put it simply, a folk art form mainly is a set of aesthetics that come together in a composition which becomes a certain form, which can be defined as a certain form. Like I said, most classical forms also come from a folk root somewhere. It's taken many, many years, and communities, people have very short memories. So we quite often, when it's not written down and it's not the Torah or the Bible or a Bhagavad Gita, which does not change, it is something that exists within our mind. Folk then becomes like a large collective dream that we're all dreaming at the same time. When I share the story of Yalama with you, you become a part of that dream because you're interpreting. You're going to say the story out to somebody else. And hence you're again moving the story in different ways. Renuka Yalama's story, you can hear it across the country. If you look closely, and no matter what city you are in India, you will find Renuka Yalama. You might not find her as Renuka Yalama, but you will find Princess Renuka, who is the mother of Parshurama and who married Jamadagni. She had a problematic marriage and she had a problematic son. That is basically, to oversimplify the story, that's what it is. But there are lots of permutation and combinations, and there are thousands of versions, and every version, in the beginning when I started looking for the myth, I was like, okay, this one is good, but which is the original? It's the most stupidest thing to ask, actually. I mean, that's my realization of it. You don't ask which is the original. Each story is an original to that community, because not just one community follows Renuka Yellamma. People across this country have one way or the other recognized this woman for the troubles that she went through. So when you watch a Yellamanata, which is basically her story, an overnight play which happens for over 10 hours, what you're making space for is a collective lament for someone's story that is very similar to a lot of women within our society. So Renuka is not just a deity, but she is a deity because she echoes all our stories, echoes the stories of so many women and so many troubles that they went through. So like I explained, imagine a large cloud and it keeps adding. Yes, it pours down every once in a while, but this cloud, what's precipitating and going up into this cloud is your thoughts, your actions, your movement within this society. So because folk is always moving, folk art forms are always moving, and the folk artist becomes a very interesting pivotal point in this realm. You have the story and the ideas that keep moving, and you have the artists, the art which gets formulated. Each community kind of formulates and weaves their own stories, their own myths, their own rituals. Then you have the folk artist. So the folk artist is someone who practices the folk art form, quite simply that. But again, look at the other layer. A folk artist is not usually from somewhere else, from some other community, but is from the community from which the key folk knowledge system comes from. So each of our communities have our own knowledge systems, and these knowledge systems every once in a while give birth to these amazing compositions, these art forms. They exist sometimes, they get patronage, they transcend, they become classical, or they just perish or change. The meaning and why we do it changes, but we will retain something from the past. So there's tons of layers of history. So you can't really say this story is 500 years old or this story is 7,000 years old. It is 700 years old and it is 7 days old, all at the same time. It's like the Matrix. I hope that didn't confuse you. Yeah. Going back to a folk artist. I think a folk artist is one who is the true keeper of any folk art form. It is he or she who decides what stays, what goes, what changes. For example, I will tell you a little bit of a story. So my husband and I, we started watching Yellamanata and Mudubi. It's been 10 years since we've been married, and almost 8 years back, maybe 8 or more, when we went back, we had a Yellamanata that was hosted by my dad. And so the story, the plot, the bit in the story which is playing, and the play at that point was in a place where Renuka, a young princess, she's not married to Jamadagni yet, she is walking in the forest with a couple of her friends. Usually the person who plays Renuka is a Jogati, is a transgender woman. And usually you have guys, sometimes older men, say 60 and above, who are the extras. So they dress up as women, they dress up as sadhus, they dress up as whatever is required. They won't be a very large team. They're a fairly small team. So you have these people come in, set up tent, and they do the play. So in this scene, Renuka is going to the forest, and her toothless old men who are dressed as friends are walking alongside her. They turn around and they ask Renuka, tell us what kind of boy you want to get married. Who are you going to get married? Aren't you thinking about anyone? She's like, yeah, of course I'm thinking about marriage. Of course. So they're like, look, all these boys are sitting here. This Mudubi town, apparently very good looking boys are there. So why don't you point out one of these boys? Maybe they'll be willing to marry you. And she turned around and she pointed at Adi, that's my husband. She pointed at Adi and she said, Avane na avanige madhi aagta, she said, which basically means I'll marry him only. Adi didn't really understand that much Kannada back then, so he was a little taken aback and he was like, what did she say? So I was sitting close by and I explained it to her. The person walking next to her, next to the person playing Renuka, one of her friends, the toothless old man. So he turned around and he said some derogatory words. I'm going to try not to curse today. So he said, hey, huch hudigi, ಅವ ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡಿಸಿಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಹಳೆಯ ಹಣ ನೀ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮದ್ವೆ ಆಗ್ತಿ. So she basically said he is married to the person who hosted the show, so obviously you can't, he is the son-in-law of the person who hosted the show, so you obviously can't marry him. And so it was a moment which could have, that improvisation firstly broke the fourth wall. What we see in proscenium, we stand on stage and then there is a clear demarcation as to where you are and where your audience is. But this is not the case with folk theatre, ritual theatre like this. So she immediately broke the fourth wall, included everybody in the audience in the play, and then the quick improvisation. It doesn't need to be written in any text. It doesn't need to be a rehearsed dialogue. The artist there has the power to basically change and move in a direction and come back and navigate. So that's what I mean when I say the folk artists are the ones who are the keepers of any art form, be it Yalamanata or Chaudaki Pada, which is the Devdasi songs that are sung on these pair instruments. Or it can be Gigi Pada, which is like a Kavali-like form, where they battle out two different teams from two different communities, two different villages come together and they battle it out, a battle on gender. You know, who is right? The man is right. No, the woman is right. So it's very fascinating when you look at each form and when you witness it. Who is performing? How are they performing it? Which community? At what time? It gives you so much information, especially from someone who's completely disenfranchised. And this is happening to so many of us in the city, where we migrate to the cities. We want to give a better life for our children, but over time there is no method of curating our culture to our kids in such a way that they will continue or they will feel proud of it. We tend to disassociate immediately from our folk roots when we think that we have to be urbanized, we have to be a certain someone, speaking a certain language, walking a certain walk, drinking a certain drink, eating a certain thing. So quite often I feel like a hybrid because I constantly live between these two worlds. A world where there is myth and magic and agricultural strain and women empowerment. And I say this because you can see in the women, I'm not saying the community strength is great and the power of the community is wonderful in the villages. Power can be a good thing and it can be a very corrupting force at it as well. But you can see the need for collectivization and the possibility to collectivize that happens much more quickly. And that's why probably folk exists in spaces where these connections of community are strong and they continue to get rebuilt in some form of engagement. Yes, there is a lot of money in the market. There is a lot of money in the villages. There is a lot of WhatsApp and TikTok and all of that that's happening. But with it, you can't really say, especially, I get this a lot of people in the city, but oh, that's not original folk. You don't really know what original is. Folk actually is a word which is problematic in that sense because the word itself marginalizes the art forms. Everything that is not popular to you and everything that is not in the mainstream or not a classical form is folk. So when someone tells me, oh, you have a folk voice, I don't really know what that means most of the time. Because there are so many different kinds of voices which are folk voices. We will come to that. Let me answer a simple question. I think I get referred to as a folk artist a lot. So am I a folk artist? I've been practicing the Shruti and the Chaudaki, which are two folk instruments. I sing with them. I play the tamburi. I play a couple of other folk percussion instruments now. And this is the last 4 years. So am I a folk artist now? According to me, no, I'm not a folk artist, mainly because I do not have the lived experience. Folk artists don't come out of nowhere and catch on to a form which you have no ancestral connection to and make it work. I'm not saying if I try and go and learn Yakshagana today, it's not going to be possible. It's possible only because it is over time being institutionalized. It's wonderful actually in our own lifetime to see a folk form like Yakshagana make this transition from folk to classical. That's what's happening. Things are being written down. The aesthetics are more classified and rigorously put to use. So when you're looking at this form, which is transcending, it's becoming a classical form. You can actually see what makes it classical. The proscenium makes it classical. The amount of patronage a form gets makes it classical. The number of countries the artist can travel, the access that they build towards with other artist networks, that makes it, make that jump from a folk form to not so much a folk form. It's a form of its own. It's Yakshagana. So the word folk itself, I actually like to go back to the Kannada word. We say Janapada. Jana, people, pada, song, word, or voice, people's voice. So people's voice actually is a more appropriate way. It's quite unjust. I mean, the injustice of calling something just folk is like saying, I don't really care any further. I'm going to say it's folk. But to a person who's living in the village, there is no folk. It is my culture. It is the culture. It's not the one from the periphery. It's not the folk culture. It's my culture. Just like that, they don't really call themselves folk artists. I'm not saying all, but most of the artists that we've engaged with, they don't live the life of an artist. They, unlike me, they don't go around saying, oh, we are actors or we are vocalists. We do these things because we've got training for it and we've done so many years of experience, so we want to put it in front of our name, but for them, they're farmers, they're tailors, they're potters, they're leather workers, they're could be anything which belongs in that village economy. And seasonally, that's how most rituals in the villages work. Most festivals are truncated between seasonal changes, harvests. It's the agrarian life, and these festivals add something. It's not just there for everyone to just have a ball of a time, drink your extra glass of wine and go to bed. It's not that. I mean, definitely, that is also where we are headed. Most festivals have become about getting extremely sloshed early in the morning. At least that's the case here in North Karnataka. You should have seen Holi. But you can look at why a certain art form is folk and a certain art form is not folk. And when we talk about Janapada, the word Janapada, that's people's voice, let's just understand what that means. People's voice. It's not just accents. It's not just the dialects. It's more than that. It's about how they use their voice. Now, if you go towards Bangalore, you will see a lot of paddy plantation. You will see within those hills, you will pass by, driving through the ghats, and there'll suddenly be an opening, and it's bright green on the bottom, and there's just paddy, just saying hello to you, shining in the sun. And there'll be women working on them. One such song was told to me by a friend's mother. It goes like this. Oh bele, oh bele, na 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 na, oh bele. So I think it's the way the breath is used. When you come down, you go oh bele, and you come back up and you go oh bele. So there is something that your diaphragm and your body, your lungs are doing, and there is a rhythm that's being created, and both these are coming together, and a song is being tied to hold these two together. The efficiency in work, the rhythm of the work that's happening amongst the women, to keep a steady pace, and also to forget the burden that the body is feeling, standing in the sun, bending over and doing back-breaking work. So quite often, most of the work songs come from this place. Now this voice, you will hear this if you move up north into the hills. Two friends of mine, Ishwar and Anushka, they made this film called Up, Down and Sideways, Koki Palo. And that's in the Northeast, a small, quaint, agrarian village. And their work songs, they've recorded work songs. And there are 3-4 people doing 3 different layers to that song. There's one person going, and somebody else is going, there are a couple of words, I don't remember what it is, but it's layered and then build tempo that way. These are head-heavy voices, so the voice is being projected backwards. Now, if you look at dry land, like where I'm staying right now, Gulbarga, you will have people throw their voices forwards and kind of rounds at the end. They definitely speak from a much lower space. It's not necessarily a head voice or a chest voice, but it really comes from the abdomen sometimes. With that volume, you can hear it. They speak that way because the landscape requires them to do that. Wide open spaces, the way the sound requires to travel, over time, the voice has evolved to suit the space, suit the action, suit the need of the people and the lives that are being lived. So when you say folk voice, there are thousands of folk voices because there are thousands of different landscapes and castes, communities, rituals, practices, I can go on. So because we are such a diverse country, we have a lot of folk forms and they're not all dying. They are within our ancestry, and as soon as we urbanize, we tend to kind of detach from it or not know how to attach to it. So quite often it requires you to kind of go back 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations. Ask yourself, where did my people come from? Because quite often the disenfranchised, a body and mind without its cultural connect, feels kind of empty. I mean, I felt it for a long time, and which pushed me to understand this journey better. When you say, I'm a scheduled caste person, what does it mean to me, who is convent bred, who lived in upper middle class life, never really had to use my certificate, my SC certificate for resolution. For that matter, I didn't know I was SC till I passed my 10th standard. So what does it mean? It means a certain connect with the people or the ancestral connect that you have. It's about revoking it. It's about reviving it and letting yourself know what you have to be proud about. What is it that you need to be proud about? Not just as Shilpa Mudvi, but a Madiga who comes from this lineage and now is come back to do research in that work. Why this work becomes that much more meaningful to me is because it feeds my soul. It feeds my thirst for singing what could be lost forever. It's the songs that my grandmother sang that I started singing in the beginning, and yeah, people would tell me that's a folk voice. How did you develop it? It's not easy because while I was in the choir in Sophia High School, I was a choir girl. You know, I loved being in the choir, and I had a certain voice that I would sing those songs with. So now, almost 16 years later, you're looking at how do I reconstruct this timbre, this resonance, the way I'm singing. I always used to hear my grandmother sing from a very young age, so I'm guessing it's definitely helped with understanding it better. But it's about kind of taking a step back and saying, what is it, if I'm an artist and I'm calling myself an artist, what is it that I want to practice? What voice do I want to carry forward? What culture or what cultural connect that I want to bring into my work through my art practice? So that is something that I wanted to talk to you all about. I hope that's been helpful. What really helps with voice, I mean, just to touch upon it a little, is to be good listeners. Yeah, there was a lot of emphasis even through today's session about being good listeners. And it's not just good listening, it's deep listening. When you hear Usha Uttar and you hear Kishore Kumar, you should be able to see someone's voice, because voice is not just one muscle, right? It's not just confidence, it's not just how you carry your body, but it's also something that has been built over time, that it's your identity that has come from your parents, people who brought you up, people who you've liked, teachers who had stunning voices. So there are so many influences in your voice that it's not just a tool for you to use, but it's the embodiment of your character, of your personality. And when you start looking at the musical aspects of what you want to learn, especially as a musician, as a vocalist, when you start listening to voices, you want to be able to say that's where the tension is. This is not so much a chest voice, this is a head voice. This is not so much a head voice, this is a nasal voice. Like my grandmother sings, and a lot of her friends sing like this. Not moving the mouth much, using the entire nasal chamber. It's not really a head heavy voice either, because they're also using their chest. They sound strong. The voices are strong, and when they come together, they kind of fuse like the Shehnai, like a drone. They all kind of just click. There's a certain characteristic to it, and when you listen to songs like that, you realize it's also probably gender. It's about women sitting in public spaces and singing. They're not like "Matado nalla," but they're trying to restrain themselves, like to sing like obvious samba. They're so well put together. There's also a little bit of that happening. So a lot of things that you observe, and by being a fly on the wall and keeping your ears open, there's much one can learn. No matter how good or how bad a speaker is, the person who is speaking, actually, listening is something that you can constantly do and deeply do to improve your own understanding of your voice. So the number of students that I've had for the last 2 years, they've all been case studies for me. They've all helped me be a better teacher. And today I kind of help people as a vocal coach to understand what it is that they're having trouble with, especially with people who are trying to sing, and the limitations of each voice, or the limitation that you yourself have given your voice, is something someone else needs to listen to, or you yourself need to understand what you're listening to or how you're listening to. So it's about breathing and understanding breathing and listening and deep listening. They're all different techniques, but I hope I've given you enough information for you to ask me questions so I can answer. Sorry to have taken up a lot of time. I hope this session has been useful. Over to all of you guys.
Yes,
Thank
Hannah.
you so much, Shilpa, for that wonderful session. It was very informative, and I'm sure we enjoyed each bit of it, of what you spoke. I open the floor to questions, and the first question will be asked by Aditya. Please go ahead, Aditya.
Hello, ma'am. I just wanted to know the reaction of the younger generation, especially from your Yellow Banata performances in the rural districts. Like, what was their initial reaction?
Right. Now, as urban youth, there are a lot of people we have been conducting workshops with. So the urban youth seem much more excited about folk arts than the kids who live in the villages. We had a story. We had this thing happen to us where there were these two boys who were really curious about our camera and our lights, because we had gone there with our entire setup. And they were there. So I was like, wow, look at these young boys coming to listen to these Gigipada songs. These are so old. And they weren't interested at all. They were actually waiting to go to their party, which was happening right behind the dargah, where there was EDM playing. And they just wanted to have a party. Like, they had no interest in the Gigipada whatsoever. And they were there only because we turned up with cameras. But what the conversation that followed that day, Aditya, is that they came and they asked us, why you interested? Like, look at you, y'all are wearing Crocs and y'all look like cool city people. Why would you care about Gigi Pada? And so I was like, are you even listening to what they're singing? They're being blasphemous. They're actually yelling at each other. They're cursing each other. And that's fascinating to do that musically, take out your frustration musically out on someone. So that's what I told them. And they didn't seem like, they were like, yeah, whatever, loonies. But I don't necessarily think it's going to capsulate the young mind unless it moves. That's why folk needs to be contemporary. When you give the power to a youngster in the village to be able to take that Gigi Pada and turn it into rap, or turn it into rock, or turn it into whatever mainstream form that they are right now listening to, only then can it move with them, or they're just going to abandon it. That's what I think.
Yes, ma'am. I do believe the cross-cultural infusion will be like one of the best things that could ever happen.
Say, for example, if you and I decided to go to Mudvi and sit and sing, you would probably excite more youngsters to come and sit and sing with you rather than me just sitting and singing to my grandmother and her age group. You know what I mean? So you have to bring the urban kids to excite the rural kids to excite the urban kids. I'm hoping this is the bridge we actually need to build. The young people across different classes and different geographies kind of coming together and telling each other that, wow, you have something of value. Like, I don't know if you'll have seen Enjami. Is that the name of the song? It's by Dhi. It's a Tamil song, and there is a little bit of Opari in it. There's Opari in a pop song where there are people dancing and doing hip hop. It's more like a hip hop number. There's a little bit of rap also, I think, in it. But there is Opari in it. And what happens is you've taken that continuation of your ancestral energy because you've tapped into that form. So we don't all have to be same kind of jazz musicians across the world. Korean jazz is going to sound different from Nubian jazz. Why? Because they have influences from their culture. I hope that helped.
Shilpa, any more questions? Hannah?
Nobody has messaged us yet. So I can, anybody else, you can please feel free to unmute and go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, Puneet. Puneet, you there?
Hi, ma'am. I would like to ask a question. This is Priyanka here. My question will be almost similar to what Aditya actually asked. Like, there is a bridge between understanding of folk. And I also do believe that this knowledge of folk is lacking. Like, very recently, I started understanding a little bit of folk, but even there is a lack of knowledge of folk to a lot of people here. How do you think that we can actually bridge this? I don't see that much of a thing being done towards folk that people can understand actually what folk is all about.
Shilpa, you're on mute. Shilpa, you're mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Priyanka, I think I get your question. You're asking me, how is it that we can build this bridge back, right? Generationally, sometimes there is a break. There is migration.
Yes. Yes.
And I think each parent is responsible to curate their culture to their kids. Now, quite often, not every parent has that time. And when you as an adult feel the lack of this cultural connect, which is, at least for me, my cultural connect in Bangalore was going for Easter parties and Christmas parties, and then being in Coxtown during Ramzan. That was the urban culture that I followed, and so now I had to kind of go back to my village, go back to my ancestral towns, and figure out what culture was there. And quite often, wherever we are from, We come from an agrarian background. So quite often, the simplest thing we can do is renew our relationship with our food. Where does our food come from? If you were to buy from a farmer and if you can spend one harvest with him, your your association with food and how you eat that food and what you're reminded of when you eat that food is going to completely change. That is the power of art, right? And what folk art does, it's the combined interest of a collective of a number of people who come together and create that energy. It is not just one priest or one artist or one painting or one particular aesthetic that's making that happen. It's people who come together and create that. So my suggestion is, go back to any agrarian roots and find yourself being able to sit and relate to the earth, people who work with the earth, the people who are protesting today, the farmers who've been sitting and they got tired and they got COVID and they went back home and they're still fighting. They are the ones who are the holders of their culture because they still live in their communities, and to be able to associate with one another, they have festivals. To celebrate one another in the brotherhood, they have festivals. To resurrect something, to correct something, like in Bangalore, you call a kola when there is a dispute in the family, and you call that spirit when you need that spirit to give you guidance. It's not every day that the spirit is going to walk around. So we need to find reasons to connect with our folk roots, and quite often when we don't see them right in front of us or right behind us, we just need to find the closest person to their community and see what they're doing. Your Deepavali might be not the same Deepavali again once you see an agrarian ritual to Deepavali. There is a huge hue and cry about what animal you sacrifice and how you eat and what you eat, but every sacrifice basically means food for people. Whether you're slaughtering a bison or a cow, or yes, you can. People who have the money and who can be vegan might look down upon it, but when you slaughter a big animal, you feed the whole village. Now there is so much excess that everyone wants to slaughter their own goat, so everyone has biryani in their own homes, made possible by the goat that they brought. But it was not the case before, and that's why I think every ritual there is a folk aspect to it. Look for it. How does your mother celebrate Deepavali? How does your mother celebrate Dasara? What did your grandfather do for Dasara? These key times like Yugadi, Dasara, Deepavali. Not so much these Manavmis and Krishna Janmashtami, not that. So something that's related more seasonally, something that connects. Does that clarify?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
There is one question from Puneet. He says, many of our members have fascinating diction and pronunciation because of the unique mother tongue. How can we embrace it better?
Sing in it. I relearned the Kannada that my grandmom used to speak because I started singing her songs, and suddenly I'm like, what does this mean? What does that mean? What is this word? What is Shambar? A lot of my students also who have come to sing, they have reintroduced Kannada back in their lives through music. Because there's something else your mind is looking to do when you're singing. It's trying to lose itself. It's trying to go, especially these exercises that we do when we all sing together. Why doing a bhajan is so powerful. I remember going to ISKCON as a child and jumping with everybody. It does feel like a rave. It's a real frenzy, and you're building this energy with music and with people jumping around you, with everyone's heart racing. It's the power of everyone singing together which you can harness. So I think it's a way to learn language and diction better, but it doesn't necessarily, I don't know if it really helps you with speech. As an actor, I think I had a couple of voice masters who I learned from. One was Jean-Jacques Lemaitre from Théâtre du Soleil, which is Theatre of the Sun in France, which is like an old theatre. And there's a music composer. He looks like Gandalf with his big beard, and he used to come to Pondicherry to teach us about voice. And something he said about my voice was more like a doctor who looks at an X-ray and tells you what's wrong with your voice. That was the first time I realized that I was bending down I was pitching everything down or pitching everything up, and I would go into these patterns of reading that way or saying things that way. He also corrected my breathing and how so much of your breathing has to do with your diaphragm, not so much how you breathe it. You know, don't make it all about your nose, but it's so much to do with your diaphragm and how do you strengthen your diaphragm. My understanding of voice and diction and enunciation, I think all of it sort of fell into place when I realized that my entire body is required for my voice. I can even speak, I can, with a good strong voice, even your toes will be in play. So to understand that there are different rhythms, that your body itself is an instrument, that your heartbeat is actually your metronome, and every other beat that you have actually layers over it, and you find connection, a relation between your breath and this other beat, and hence that's why you kind of connect with it. So yeah, I hope I answered that. I'm not sure I did either.
Thank you, Shilpa. Next, one last question from Kunal. He says, you touched upon vocal training aspects and how voices are different from different folk forms depending upon the geography.
Yeah.
One thing that is common is that they have strong throw and projection. They capture attention. How can we learn some of those techniques and incorporate them into our spoken voice that we can use them to captivate our audiences as a public speaker?
That took some time for me. It's not something that's easy. I'll tell you why. Mainly because folk voices are generally what people talk about are rural voices, are voices which have working bodies. Very important. A working body, a good voice is just like a side effect for a working body because they're constantly using their lungs, they're constantly using their diaphragms. So when you have your entire body singing, oh, Pele, you're doing something. You're not just getting better at doing that work, but you're getting better at using your breathing. For an athlete, uh, a runner has to figure out how to breathe effectively to not lose speed. It's exactly the same thing for speech or music. You have to understand your breath like your breath is you. You are your breath. So, how are you going to keep it in your control? And everything else kind of just falls in place. So, it's a lot of training. I think for me, it took some time. I broke my voice a lot. I went through vocal rest. There is a hard way of going at it, and there's definitely a more easy way of going at it. Depends on what students want to do. There are a lot of students who want to just wake up. I want volume in my voice. I want pitch correction. They're very clear about what they want. But quite often, people don't really know what they want from their voice. They just have this fear of someone telling them, you're not good at singing, or you don't have a singer's voice, or you don't have a great voice. So they are not actually standing inside themselves and performing. A lot of actors, I've seen this myself, where they're actually outside their body. They're looking at themselves constantly performing. They're not inside at all. You can tell they're not embodied. They're trying to act. They're trying to put a face together that I am confident. Look at me. I'm moving my hands and I'm being very confident. But it doesn't always work. You can see through it. I hope that helped. It's training, a lot of training. So tons of exercises. And yes, I can do this, a little bit of it, and then I will sign you off onto my teachers, of course. But it's important to get an understanding of what voice is, what each of your muscles do, especially the ones in your chest, especially the ones in your shoulder. You will see people who are nervous about speaking constantly bringing these two shoulders in, reducing resonance around their chest and back. This I've seen with a lot of singers. I mean, a lot of aspiring singers. So you just need to know what you're watching out for. So when find your nervous tics. What are you doing with your legs, with your fingers? Where is your nervous tick? Find it and kill it like a bug.
Thank you, Shilpa. I think you covered almost everything. We had shortage of time also. Still, you're able to cover so many things, so many aspects of folk and voice. Thank you very much for bringing the wonderful insights on folk, and it was wonderful listening to you. For me, there were many takeaways and you answered many questions as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a thunderous round of applause to Shilpa Mudbi. So I think it's almost 9:10. Before end, let's announce the winners of today's meeting. Best tag team player goes to Toastmaster Preeti. Best role taker goes to Toastmaster Aaron. Best evaluator goes to Distinguished Toastmaster Dr. Rajdeep Anwani. And the best speaker goes to Toastmaster Abhirama. I request all to unmute and give all the speakers, all the winners, a good round of applause. Hope we all had a wonderful meeting. And with that, that's it from my end. I adjourn the meeting number 1271 with a bang. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good
Bye.
weekend. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.